Well, folks, Republicans were in for a big reckoning last night. They must accept the reality of their party at this point. This must be a huge wake-up call. I'm not going to sit here in doom and gloom, but we're going to call a spade a spade. We're not going to let Democrat propaganda push us so far into insanity that we believe Republicans are doomed forever, because they're not. We need to call a spade here. The reality is that the GOP is now the party of low-propensity voters. We used to know that it was switched. Democrats used to have tough times in these special elections when they were the party of low-propensity voters. And we know that the Republicans have now become the party of the working class, which in turn means we are the party of the low-propensity voter. And we are going to have to deal with the reality of that. That is just as simple as that. And we saw it play out. We saw it in that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. Susan Crawford won by about 10 points. Kind of shrunk the margin by a point from the 2023 Supreme Court race. But ultimately, there were a lot of good things that we saw come out of the races last night. We saw Wisconsin adopt voter ID requirements to the state constitution by an overwhelming majority. We saw the only two counties, Dane County and Milwaukee County, were the only two counties that voted against question 1 on the ballot. There were some big things when it came to Congressional District 1 and 6 in the state of Florida. Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine both won their elections here, and we're going to kind of dig into this and how it's really not as doom and gloom as the Democrats really have it, how they want to act like it is. They want to act like this is horrible. Oh my gosh, their margins have been cut in half. It's a special election. Calm the hell down. Honestly, just calm down. There are some structural issues that the GOP needs to recognize. And that is what we need to talk about first in Wisconsin. And that is the operational capacity of this political party. It is the overall infrastructure, the resources, the systems that the party has enacted, the processes that are in place to achieve the goals of the party. We know that 2016 and 2020, the presidential campaign for Donald Trump was very much kind of thrown together. It was not this well-oiled machine. It was very much thrown together. Contrast that with 2024 when Donald Trump ran a very, very traditional campaign where they kind of offloaded some of their ground game to people like Scott Presler and Charlie Kirk. They had a well-oiled machine in 2024. And we are going to talk about this infrastructure from the top down. You need infrastructure from the bottom up. You do not, you obviously, when it comes to the big races, you need the infrastructure from the top down, no doubt. But ultimately, when it comes to races like this, races that are really going to affect voters' lives, you need to focus on the infrastructure from the bottom up. At the precinct level, the city level, the county level, the congressional district level. That's how you need to be looking at things. Whether it's wards or precincts, you need to have managers at the lowest level who are actually doing the work that is required. The Republican Party, I truly 100% believe, and the election last night proved this, that the Republican Party's policies and positions are much more popular than the Democrat policies. Because you had an election where you have a Supreme Court justice who is very much against voter ID. In the same election, that voter ID was adopted by the state. I 100% believe that the policies espoused by the Democrats are much, much, much more unpopular than the policies that are promoted by the Republican Party. It is not even close. It is not even close. Whether you want to talk about immigration, transgender issues, trade, I believe the American people are more behind the Republican Party than they are behind the Democrat Party. This election in Wisconsin shows the vulnerability in our infrastructure. The ability to coordinate efforts across the state at the local level, the precinct level, the state level. Historically, a lot of these constituencies were divided into precincts, which had party agents. And then there were leaders at many different levels, from the county level, the city level, the precinct level, the district level, how the school board, I guess that would be at the county level as well. But the state level, the region, the national level, these are all the different levels where you need to have infrastructure. You need to have constituents in your party that are actively involved, that are going to ensure voter turnout. And for Wisconsin, for the Wisconsin GOP, this would mean having a well-structured network of managers and volunteers and staff members and local leaders who are going to step up when things like this, when there are off-cycle elections like this. You need to make sure you have good staffing, good funding. You can't have good staffing unless you have good funding. Proper technology to run campaigns, enough money to run advertisements, whether it's canvassing, whether it's voter outreach, whether it's training staff on how do you manage, when you're door knocking or you're banking votes, phone banks, how to handle people who are on the fence, how to handle independents. There's a big part of the Republican Party. You have the 45% of the state that's going to vote for the Republican Party that's going to get out there. You need to energize the other half of the base to get out there and vote in these elections. It needs to be run like a business, a well-oiled machine. We need to understand what are the capacity what are the outputs we can get from the processes and systems that we have in place? What can it produce? Which ultimately is going to translate into political impact when it comes to actual votes that are banked in an election. That is the big story here that we need to take out. We don't need to take out that this is a complete repudiation of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Sure. From some very far left Democrats and the majority of the Democrat Party, is this a rebuke of Donald Trump and Elon Musk? Absolutely. Absolutely it is for the Democrats. But for the state of Wisconsin, this was more of they were more disinterested in this race than they were interested. That is the true message we should be taking away from this. They were not interested in what was going on. They were not energized to get out and vote. That was the issue here. And I think there's a lot of people who hit it on straight. You cannot just throw money at these problems. You can't. I even commented it here. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Right here. Between Lindell and Pressler, the GOP has spent something on the order of $300 million on completely unproductive efforts. In contrast, what I think this has something to do with Virginia, the Virginia project did on $500,000, which is 100% true. Just throwing money at an issue is not going to fix it. You need to make sure you have the proper infrastructure in place to handle that money, to make sure that money is being used properly, whether it is targeted ads, whether it is proper staffing, whether it is voter outreach. Allocating those resources properly is key. It's key. You can throw as much money as you want at the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, but unless you have the infrastructure to actually manage that money, to make sure the resources are allocated properly to get the result that you're looking for, you are not going to win elections. And a big part of what you need is you need voter mobilization. You need to be able to, as a party, be able to identify at a local level, at like the city level or a precinct level or the congressional district level, identify, contact, and turn out those voters, especially those low-propensity voters, which make up a huge part of the faction. That is how Donald Trump won in 2024. He turned out low-propensity voters that were not interested. They turned out for Trump. And this is a bigger issue that the GOP is going to have to grapple with long-term. This is not just a Wisconsin thing or a state thing or a precinct or a congressional district or a regional. This is a national issue. How is the Republican Party going to turn voters out when Donald Trump is not on the ballot? Because the reality of the situation is that Donald Trump will not be on the ballot in 2028. Donald Trump can poke fun at the Democrats about running for a third term, and he can that's fine. I don't want to say it's fine because I'm not a big fan of it, because Donald Trump will be 82 at that time. But the reality is Donald Trump is not going to be alive forever. He is not going to be able to run for office forever. That is just a simple reality the GOP is going to have to face. Why is it that we didn't really start ramping up this Supreme Court election race until a couple months ago or 5-6 months ago? There needs to be strategic long-term planning. And that's what it can't be like, this is how I think about it. When you're looking at the map or the political infrastructure that's in place, what the Republican Party does and what they've done in the last number of elections, except for the 2024 election, it's kind of like the, what is that? What's that Halloween store called? What is that called? What are the pop-ups called? Spirit Halloween. They have a Spirit Halloween infrastructure. They 60 days before, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing there, but right before the election's about to happen, they come up, set the infrastructure up, do it. It's like it is just massive effort, 150% effort for the 60 days before the election occurs. Instead of the Democrats have more of a Costco infrastructure. You have a large base of loyal supporters to your company with infrastructure that is spread out, whether it's distribution centers, whether it's actual storefronts, business centers, and the planning from the top down, but also the infrastructure from the bottom up. Because the planning from the top down doesn't mean anything if the infrastructure is not there from the bottom up. That's just a simple reality. There needs to be long-term preparation. We cannot be the spirit Halloween of politics. We can't go in 60 days before, pop up a campaign and expect to win. We need long-term preparation. Building a consistent pipeline of candidates to run for different offices, from the city council level to the mayoral level to the state senate to the state House of Representatives to the governor to the AG to the Secretary of State. All of those different positions, there needs to be a pipeline of candidates in every state. There needs to be serious infrastructure at the state level. Serious infrastructure. There needs to be proper training for campaign staff, how to address the media. How are you addressing issues? What is the best way to message a certain issue? And because that message needs to resonate with voters. The Virginia, the Virginia Project, these people really emphasize it great, that they should have started 2 years ago. They're talking a lot about this, and I really like this Virginia Project. They're talking a lot about it. That you needed to start this 2 years ago. There needs to be a sustained effort rather than this last-minute frenzy, Spirit Halloween-esque frenzy that occurs. And at the end of the day, you need to be able to run it like a business. A campaign is a business. To operate smoothly, without major inefficiencies. And you need to be able to operate at full capacity or more than full capacity indefinitely. Indefinitely. This needs to be something that's not like we build it up for every election cycle. We need to be laying the groundwork. Like, we need to be laying the groundwork for 28 right now. People criticize me for talking about 2028 and 2026 because we're so far out. That's the issue why we didn't win this race, is because we weren't talking about the Supreme Court race because it was too far out. No, we should be talking about it because it's so far out. This is the thing about Americans, and Ben Shapiro really sums up very well. When Americans are really, really bad at dealing with an issue that they see coming right at them, but they're really, really good at adapting once that problem actually occurs. He talks about climate change with that, or even like the national debt or Social Security. We see that there's a bullet train that's 50 miles away that's coming right at us that's called Social Security, that we're going to have to reduce benefits by 30% in 10 years from now if something is not done. We see it coming, but we just choose not to do anything. We choose to keep just adding more fuel to that train, and it just keeps coming faster and faster at us. But then when that train is 200 yards away from us, we are really good at adapting, really quick at getting out of the way when that issue is right in front of you. That's the reality of the Republican Party and just America right now. That's just a reality. Because like I said, it is low-propensity voters that helped Trump win in 2024. The Republican Party is made up of low-propensity voters. We need to find a way to drive these people out to the ballot box, out to the elections, when Donald Trump is not. Because that's something we're going to have to deal with for years to come. For years to come. But I'm not going to sit here and say that this is some huge repudiation of the Trump administration or some huge repudiation of Elon Musk. Maybe from the Democrats it is. But the majority of people from Wisconsin either voted for Brad Schimmel or didn't vote in the election. That's the reality of the situation. You want to look at turnout. Brad Schimmel got 1,063,000 votes. Okay, let's look at the Supreme Court race. Obviously, turnout a lot better than it was in 23. No doubt. Turnout was almost 200,000 more for the Republican Party and almost almost 300,000 more votes for the Democrat in that race. But let's compare that with 2024. Donald Trump won almost 1.7 million votes. So there's 700,000 people who went to the ballot box on November 6th or before and cast a vote for Donald J. Trump, who did not go out and vote for Brad Schimmel. And that just can't happen. And you want to look at the county level. If Republicans want to win in Wisconsin, you have to win this kind of mesh area right here. Everything kind of below La Crosse County, excluding like Dane County, Iowa County, and Greene County. Like all these counties here, Vernon County, Richland County, Sauk County, Crawford County, Grant County, Lafayette County, those need to be won. That is where the Republicans really need to drive up turnout and drive up their margins if they want to defeat the Democrats who are going to run it up in Dane County. You know, look at this race here. Trump won Vernon County, he won Crawford County, he won Grant County, he won Lafayette County, he won Richland County, he won Sauk County, he won Columbia, he won Dodge County, he won Jefferson, he won Walworth, he won Kenosha, he won Racine. Okay, now look at this race here. Susan Crawford, the Democrat, won Vernon. She won Crawford. She won Richland. She won Sauk. She won Columbia. She won Kenosha. She won Racine. She won Brown. Look at this, Brown. It's like, look, this is just insane. Where she is running up this margin. Winnebago, Portage County. Kamala barely won that. Was able to expand the margin pretty healthily there to 15 points when Trump only lost it by not even a full point. Not even a full point we're talking about here. You're telling me there was a 15-point shift there? No, there wasn't. He is not. The reality is, and I'm going to say it over and over again, we need to have the infrastructure in place. You think about it like a building. You're going to build the largest skyscraper in the world. You have the best infrastructure at the top, the most secure, the best building material, the best engineers that designed it at the top, and the best workers that built it. You know, it's a 150-store floor building. The top 70, from floor 70 to 150, the infrastructure is great, the engineering was great, the planning was great, everything is great. And when it comes to those big elections, where it's a top-down thing, it can really help carry the poor infrastructure that's on the bottom. It can really help, pull those people up. But ultimately, if there's an issue at the bottom, you're only as strong as your weakest link. If the infrastructure on the bottom 70 floors is compromised, out of date, not good, then why are we going to expect that building is going to be able to withhold storms or opposition or weight? That building's going to come collapsing down. Because even when you have good infrastructure at the top and it's a top-down election, not a bottom-up like this election is, it's like even then Trump was not able to carry everybody over. He just wasn't. You want to look at this last race here. Look at the Senate race and the presidential race. Here, Donald Trump won Wisconsin. He won Nevada. He won Arizona. He won Michigan. Look at the Senate race. This is a much different map. The Republican lost in Nevada. The Republican lost in Arizona. The Republican lost in Wisconsin. The Republican lost in Michigan. So even when it's a top-down election and the infrastructure is very strong at the top, they are still having issues. Trump can't pull everybody over the line. Now, granted, I think you can go state by state and make some, I think that Sam Brown, I really like Sam Brown, to be 100% honest with you. I thought he was a good candidate. I thought maybe there could be a better candidate. I liked him, but I think there was a lot of Republicans who made good points and maybe he was not the strongest candidate for that race. Especially with some of the views that he espoused. Even though I may agree with it, we were still trying to win a state that it was a toss-up state at the end of the day. You saw it in Arizona as well with Kari Lake. Two-time loser now? Three-time loser now? Two-time loser? She lost the governor's race in 22. Poor candidate quality led to the Democrats winning in a state that President Trump, it's like Trump won Arizona by what? By a decent amount. Same thing with Nevada. He won it by a decent amount, 3 points. Ultimately still lost. The Republican could not pull over the edge. And even in states that were stronger, like Wisconsin and Michigan, where Michigan he won by about 1.5 points, he's still not able to pull over Eric Hudvey or Mike Rogers in that race. He just wasn't able to. And that's just the reality of that situation there. So even, like we said, when that structure is it's a top-down infrastructure that you need in those big presidential elections. Even that can't pull people down ballot over the threshold needed to win your election. It really is just as simple as that. But enough talking about the Supreme Court race here and the infrastructure that's needed in states. And this is needed in many states. It's like, I think Republicans have good, especially you look at Florida, you look at Georgia, you look at New York. I think Republicans have done really good in New York with the actual infrastructure that's in the state of New York. There's a lot of places that have good infrastructure, but ultimately the Democrats have always been the party that have much, much, much better infrastructure in place than the Republican Party. The Democrats have always had much better ground game infrastructure. And like I said, we cannot be the Spirit Halloween. We cannot be the Spirit Halloween. But so now let's jump over to these races in Florida. Now, ultimately, I know the title of this is it's a huge wake-up call for the GOP. But I think there's a wake-up call that can be recognized in Florida too. And it's a wake-up call to not be... Don't let the Democrats get in your head. Don't let it happen. Because the Democrats, that's what they're trying to do. They are trying to get in your head. They are trying to tell you that because the margin in these two states, or in these two congressional districts, was lower than what it was in the presidential election, that it somehow means there's this huge erosion of support for Trump and the Republican Party in the stronghold of Florida, which is just totally not true. Support for Donald Trump has increased since Election Day. That is a fact. Most polls show that his support has increased since Election Day. Maybe on the economy has his numbers come down, which I think, give him a full year, and I think you're going to be very happy with where Trump is on the economy. Especially look at what's happening right now when it comes to, today is reciprocal tariffs. And look at this. Trump tells Inner Circle that Musk will leave soon. Wow, that's kind of huge news, to actually be honest with you. But here's the reality. Today is Liberation Day, according to Donald Trump. And look at this. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she will not impose tit-for-tat tariffs on the United States. Same thing is happening with Canada. Canada came out and said that, let's take a listen here. Just listen to Doug Ford here.
Hurt American jobs. I can't stress it enough. And, again, he believes he's supporting Americans. He said he was going to create jobs, create wealth, reduce inflation. It's worked the total opposite. Inflation.
But do you think it's fair that you have tariffs on a whole number of products?
That's right. And we'd be willing to take those off tomorrow if he took all the tariffs off. We are not the problem. Andrew, do you know the problem is? China's the problem. And he's taking a blind eye to China as they continue to build their critical mineral mass. We have all the critical minerals that our great neighbors need. We have the energy that our great neighbors need.
I just want to go back for a moment. If in fact you're prepared to take your tariffs off, why wouldn't you have that negotiation and that conversation now before any tariffs get put in place?
Well, we've had this conversation for over the last month. We don't want tariffs. We have another $65 billion worth of tariffs to launch today. That's the last thing we want to do, because it's just, again, it's going to hurt both countries. It's going to hurt American workers. That's the last thing I want.
You can clearly see they do not want to put tariffs in. Canada's even came out and said that, I'm just going to try and, I had made a post about that as well. They will remove tariffs if the U.S. does too. So if they come to an agreement, Trump is going to get exactly what he wanted. The Democrats have been fear-mongering about tariffs and trade wars, yada, yada, yada. What a bunch of baloney. What a bunch of baloney. Trump is going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. Israel has removed their tariffs on the United States. We're going to most likely, and here's the reality, between Mexico and Canada, there are very few, like as far as a proportion of the amount of goods and services that are traded between the two. The tariffs that Canada and Mexico have on American products are very, very... The percentage can be high, but on the actual, numerical number of products, it's not that much. It's like we're talking like 98% of products travel to Canada tariff-free or come into the United States tariff-free. But this is only going to happen because of Donald Trump and because of his trade policies. So Democrats are going to fearmonger that this was a horrible day. What's really bad. Here's the reality. Democrats poured tens of millions of dollars into these races. to cut the margin in half in a special election. Like, you're going to pour $10 million into each one of these races. I'd expect at least a single-digit margin. At least. Like, it's really bad for the Democrats when they are celebrating a victory or a loss when they lost by double digits. Yes, did it vote for 30-plus points? Each district voted for Trump by 30-plus points? Absolutely. But it's the same thing as in Wisconsin that we were talking about. Low-propensity voters propelled Trump to his victory. Low-propensity voters do not vote in these types of elections. That is an issue for the Republican Party. It is. But ultimately, they were still able to pull out the win with only cutting their margin in half in a special election when Democrats poured millions and millions and millions of dollars into these races. I'm not worried about it really in the slightest. I am not worried about it in the slightest at this point. Because now, let's see. White House delayed Liberation Day tariffs announcement from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. after markets close. Interesting. No one is crying like this. No one is crying like this, I promise. It is not. No one is crying. Yeah, I want some arrests too. It is just insane. But ultimately, we know the Republican Party has a lot to do. It's like we said, look at this. Even when you're looking at an election that Trump won, or Trump lost the state of Michigan or Wisconsin, he still is winning Vernon County, Crawford County, Grant County, Lafayette County, Richland County, barely lost Sauk County, winning Columbia County. He won Kenosha and Racine. But then all of a sudden in this race, it's like, that's the party infrastructure. It is the infrastructure from the bottom up. It is as simple as that. So that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we will catch you next time.